Today's video is going to be about weighing your powder on scales, whether they are electronic scales or the old way of using a balance scale. So stick around for this video. I got 3 scales to show you, and we're going to measure out some powder. Good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from the Rustic log cabin in Northern Maine. Welcome to my reloading room this morning. Get yourself a cup of coffee. This is a series that we've been putting together now for a few weeks, hunting and reloading, how they go together. This is the basics of reloading. What we're doing in this series is going over the basics of reloading and getting rid of some of the myths of too costly, too time-consuming, too complicated. At the very beginning, if you go back and watch one of this series, it says, keep it simple, stupid. Well, that's exactly how I feel about this stuff, especially for creating loads for hunting and all of that, and just plain getting your rifle to shoot as good as you can without getting too complicated. Now, if you want to get complicated, this is one of those things where you can take this to the moon if you want, with equipment and gear and all of that. But in this series, I'm going to go over the gear, starting with the press, and we've already started with some of that stuff. I did a video where we did the primers and resized the cases and all of that. So if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, subscribe to the channel and come back for more of this. We're going to go over each piece of gear that is in this reloading room. All of it is very simple. I'm going to keep it as simple as we can go so that you can pick up reloading for yourself, and when you're done watching this, you can sit down to your own press and start building your own bullets. So today what I want to talk about is scales. I've got out 3 sets of scales for weighing powder, and what we were supposed to be doing by now was charging those cases that we built and putting a bullet on. So you haven't missed that. I just haven't done it yet. I got rethinking how I'm doing this, and I thought we should go over some powder, so we did a video on powder, and today we're going to do the scales. The scales are probably one of the most important parts to reloading because you have to get it right. And what I mean by get it right is if you don't know much about scales, doesn't matter if they're electronic scales or whether they're the balance scales that I use, you have to do what's called zero the scales. And if you don't zero the scales out, then you have no idea, when you go putting a charge of powder on there, you have no idea what charge of powder it is, because you started out wrong by not zeroing out the scales. You zero out the scales, and then you know you've got 54 grains of powder, or 54.8 grains of powder. And being zeroed out, it could be 60 grains of powder. It could be 65 grains of powder if it's not zeroed out. Whether it's electronic scales, or like I said, these balance ones. So today, that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to work up a load here as far as we're going to set the scales. I'm going to show you how to zero them out. Then I'm going to show you how to take care of your powder as far as to getting up to whatever you've chosen. What we're going to do today is 5.8 because that's the bullet that we're raising for a 30-06. So anyways, let's get on to the scales. Like I said, I got 3 of them I want to go through with you. So that'll take just a few minutes. But it's very, very important. So stick around for this, and I will see you in just a minute. All right. You're going to see these are the directions to the digital scales. Keep all the directions that come with your gear, put it in a safe place, file it away, because when you come back to this, you need to know how to zero it out. Use your directions, and just in case you forget, but we're going to go over that in just a minute. I don't particularly use electronic scales. It's only because I'm vintage, and I learned vintage. I call it the old ways. I love to measure powder on a balance beam. It's just the way I've always done it. I know when that thing is zeroed out and it's on zero, I've got exactly the load I want. I don't have to trust digital scales, so I prefer not to. And that's my call. And also, it's cheaper. I mean, this is a really cheap set. What I use these for is when I'm banging out pistol rounds. I don't feel I have to be as accurate on the powder. So about every 20 rounds, I will weigh up a case and everything just to make sure my powder charges are doing what I want. Now these are the scales that I normally use, and you can see I've got them up on a pedestal. And I have them up on a pedestal for a reason. When I get ready to start reloading, I pull this forward right about here. And that makes it eye level. So I'm eye level with my scales. We'll take this out of here for now. Now, first thing we got to do is we got to zero these scales out. And zeroing the scales out means put everything on zero. This is a RCBS scales. So you put everything on zero. This is on zero, and right now, this is on 4.6. So you back this off so that this is on zero. Everything has to be on zero. And you have to have your tray in. This is an RCBS scales. I've got it turned so that you can see it better than me. I like to put my scales up at eye level. This is a jewelry drawer for girls, but I use it for my small parts and pieces for reloading. So if you can come across a jewelry drawer, something like that, all the better for you. So anyways, I do it because I like things eye level, because I can see my balance beam exactly like I want it. So you want everything on zero. This is on zero, that's on zero, and you'll see the points are on zero too. But you can see that we're not on zero over here. So that's what's called zeroing out your scales. So with this foot over here, it's a screw-on foot. You adjust that foot until the zero lines up with your balance beam. There. Now see that? We're on zero. So now everything is zeroed out. And then what I like to do is just bump this just a little bit. Let it come back, and look, and when it stops on zero, you're perfect. So that's perfectly zeroed out right now. So the powder that we want, I'm going to get in my book so I can do that. So we go to our Hornady book here, and for the rifle I'm doing is a 30-06, and I am doing the 150 grain spear point bullet. So you look down here, I want to use IMR 4350. This is the very beginning load. On my particular rifle, I am shooting 58 grains of powder. The red means maximum. Never go above maximum, and always start out down here and work your loads up to the closer you get. That's a safe way of doing reloading. So we're going to set these scales for 58 grains of powder. And that's very easy to do. Okay, we've zeroed out our scales. So now we're going to take this right here, and it's in 50, 100, 150, 200. So we're going to put this on 50, right there. Over here, this is where you have your, this is from 0 to 10. So say this was 58 grains, 58.3. This is only 58 grains. So you turn this little dial here without moving the scales, nice and gentle. Turn that thing all the way up to 58. So now I'm at 5, 7, and there is 8. And you want, where I got 58 grains, you want it on 0. So now these scales are ready to measure 58 grains of powder. These right here, the brass that we worked on the other day, where we all put, we resized them, and we put the primers in them. Now I'm not going to measure all these out today. All I'm doing right now is we're going to go over scales today. But a really good habit to get into, let's see this right here. A couple things you're going to need. This is what's called a trickler. Now what I do with mine, because these are very light, I melted some lead and poured lead into the base, making it a heavy trickler. The trickler sets right here, right beside your scales. Here's my powder. I have a plastic cup. I probably have had this plastic cup up here for as many years as probably I've been reloading. Here's the IMR 4350. I pour powder into here for working up the load, and then I use a regular teaspoon to take the powder from here to there, as well as what's in, then the trickler is what finishes it off. But when you're done with the powder, you don't use all the powder that's in here. So when you're done with the powder, use a regular funnel, put the funnel inside of the same can of stuff, and put your powder back in. Because you don't want this powder getting mixed up with some other kind of powder, and now you don't know what you're playing with for powder here. All I do is pour the powder in there. This can's almost empty, but I'm pretty sure I got another one back here. Right here. So what you want to do then is put some in your trickler. The trickler goes hands in hand with the powder scales. These right here are powder funnels. You'll see they've got a funny looking bottom. They are made to sit on top of your primers. Green one is RCBS. The red one is a Lee. I kind of like the Lee because I can see through it. Sometimes not on these, but sometimes on the 22 calibers, you'll get a clog. So this just makes it so I can see. So now, and do this relaxing. You don't want to be tired when you're doing it. You don't want to be tired. You don't want to be distracted or anything like that. So don't be tired when you're doing something like this. Don't have distractions in the room. Don't be smoking. Don't be drinking. Don't be anything like that. I like to stop. Well, we don't have to do it right now because it'll move as you're... so, you know, I only do 2 boxes at a time. So that's only 40 rounds. So it doesn't take much time to sit here and I sprinkle it in because it doesn't take much to go over. See, that thing started to move, so it only takes a few. See, that's over. See, right now, that's just a couple grains over. It doesn't take much. So you got to take some out. And this is where, now you got to get the trickler started. It has to, there's a thread in there, so you have to turn it a few times just to get the stuff started. Okay, it's trickling now. So we'll just put in, I took out quite a bit, so I'll sprinkle in a little bit. What I want is till it just starts to move. There. Now you see that thing coming up? And when it gets to 0, you're good. Now a good practice, what I like to do is then, again, just bump this thing just a little bit. Let it level out. And if it's dead on, then it's dead on, and it's ready to go into a case. So you lift this out. Just like that. Now that case is charged. I'll do it, and then you take your funnel, slide down. We're going to do 2 today, because I want to get on to 2 more scales. And there, see how that thing's moving? That's when I like to stop it from moving. Use your trickler. Bring it up. Perfect. Give it a little bounce. Let it bounce into place. Now you have 2 cases that are ready for a bullet. You know, that one clogged up going in, and that's what I like about the Lee funnel. I can see. Now we talked earlier about getting into good habits. A good habit. I'm done with this powder. That's where a regular funnel comes in. I put that in there, and then I dump this back into the same container. That way, everything stays labeled. I'm not ready to reload these, that's why I'm dumping them back in. I'm going to put the what I took for this and put back into this other container, just because that's where it came out of from. You don't have to do that. It's just I'm going to. Now when you put your powder from here back in, you've got to remember that the end here is full of powder. So have this uphill, dump it back in. Then come over here and dump in the rest. Otherwise, Nat, you'll get powder absolutely everywhere. So that takes care of handling your powder. It takes care of how to run that particular scales. This one right here is electronic scales. It has to be calibrated, just like these have to be zeroed out, calibrated, the same word, same technique. You turn it on. They all need to be calibrated. This particular one is a Lyman. You hold down the button for 3 seconds, mode button. And now you'll see calibrating. You need to touch it 1 more time. Now it's blinking. That means this is what comes with it. This is a tester. This is 100 grains exactly. So now you set this on here. It'll measure it. Now it says passed. That means this thing is ready to go. That means we're good to go. Now, what I do, and you can use any tray that you want. Okay, so now we want to either, like I want to check my powder in these cases, so we know roughly how much they weigh. But say I go over to my powder measurer. I want to use this for a container that's got my powder, but I only want to know what's in it for powder. So we set this on here, and that weighs 5.99 grains. There's a T right there. You hit that T, and now it's zeroed out. So now if I put powder in here, the scales will tell me exactly how much powder is in there, and not powder plus the case. Why is that important? When I'm using the powder throwers over there, and we're going to go through that with these scales, every 10 rounds or every 20 rounds, I will take a case, I will zero it out, I'll fill it up with powder, and then I'll come back here and set it back on the scales and make sure that I'm accurate at least every 5 rounds or every 10 rounds when I'm throwing powder with a powder measurer over there. That's just pull the handle. And you can use anything for a container. You can use this right here. You could use, same deal, 4.99. Test it. Now we're at 0. Now you can put all the powder you want in there. And you know exactly how much powder's in there. $11 grains of powder that I just put in there. 11.19. So I put this back in here, set this back on there. It will go back to 0 because them scales are zeroed out to this powder tray. 12 that time. Take it out. Now it's back to 0. So for $15 at a gun show, I have a backup set of scales. But the other thing I also use these scales for is over the years, I have had people up here in the reloading room learning how to reload with me. So we were able to sit side by side, and I allowed them to use both scales, but then we could build bullets together with having the double equipment, and that way I knew when they left this room they had a pretty good idea of how to reload. So, but anyways, I think that covers everything I wanted to cover here today about these scales. So I will see you next time. Have another sip of coffee with me before we go, and I will see you in the next video.